Okay, welcome back to another Black City Coffee vlog. In this video, I am going to break down one of your roast profiles. This is from Coffee with Ryan on IG. So Ryan is working with a Hottop and using the Artisan software to document his roasts. All right, so I think the big win or the big lesson that we can glean from this type of content is just to generate some conversation about this. And please don't look at this as like I'm going to teach you all the things and you're going to that I have at any point any mastery of roasting. I'm going to share with you what I know at this point in my roast journey and my knowledge, and I'm going to really try to dissect this and look at this with all the knowledge that I have right now, okay? And then what I hope you can get from that is just to maybe spark something in your own knowledge base, because I'm not there. I don't know all of the parameters of your roast on this particular day with your particular machine and your computer, right? All that stuff that I don't know. So I just hope that it sparks something in you that you can use to make yourself a better roaster and in the end create the best cup of coffee you can produce, okay? So that's the whole point of this, all right? Just to give you some context and not to be on a high horse or anything. But I appreciate you and your patience, and I think it's really flattering to be asked what I think about this roast curve. So I'm just going to do my best, okay? So here's what we're working with. Like I said, we have a Hottop with a Artisan hooked up, and we are roasting with Panama. Like you said, I asked you to give me some specs here. It's a Panama natural washed. Is it natural or is it washed? That will kind of change, I think. It just gives me a little bit of context. Will it really change how I'm looking at this profile? Maybe a little. Maybe a little. Okay. Charge temp is 370. Okay. Batch size is 170 gram. And the max capacity for your Hottop, I believe, is 300 gram. Okay. So typically with the Hottop, we want to roast about 70 to maybe 75% of that full capacity, which I think you're right there at 170, okay? But as we will get into this thing, you may want to play with that later, okay? If you can't get certain results with your batch size, okay? I'm not sure what it came out to. I guess I want to work on a medium roast. Okay. So you were maybe aiming for a medium roast. Well, one tip I can give to you is be very sure, like, about what your goal was with the roast. If it's just to, like, play around and all that stuff, that's fine, too. But as long as you're asking somebody for advice, you definitely want to be like, I was looking to do this. I couldn't really do it. Maybe you can help me, point me in the right direction so I can do what I want to do. Okay? I know that's kind of like obvious, but I think maybe we are maybe too in a hurry, or we rush ourselves, or maybe we get too excited. But I think when it comes down to it, you need to know where you're going so you get there. Okay? So while I'm totally for aimless roasting and being intuitive and just like going for it, also work into that. You could totally do that, but also work into goal-oriented roasts, because that's how you're going to learn. I think, that's how I would do it. Okay. Again, don't mind the ET or environmental temperature. I don't know what's up with it. Hottop says everything else is good except the ET reader. Yeah. I mean, environmental temperature on a Hottop, their probes are just not going to be the best. Again, where the probe is placed, maybe not in the best place, right? So yeah, we always kind of like take some probe readings, no matter how like maybe advanced your roaster is, with a grain of salt sometimes, just because maybe it's off. Okay, cool. So let's get into it. This roast, we're going to break it down into 3 phases, because there are 3 phases to a roast. And the best tip that was given to me is nail 1 phase at a time. Okay, so let's start off with the first phase right here. We're going to charge here at 370. Now I know in the Hottop it's not going to say 370 because again, probes can be wonky. But so I'm wondering what you were looking at that let you know you were at 370 to charge. Okay, because the temperature here is like 300.5 it looks like on the Artisan. Which is, if that's true, that is kind of too low, right? But you told me 370. So we are just going to assume that this probe is wonky. Okay, well, that's a little hard now to give critique because now the numbers on the screen are wonky or not to be trusted. Okay, whatever. All right, so we're charging, and it looks like you kill the fuel or the power or the heat, however you want to use that. I'm going to say fuel today, okay? You kill the fuel, and it looks like you're doing a soak. Now, I see turning point at almost a minute at 54 seconds, and you don't turn back. You don't turn the fuel back on until about almost 2 minutes. So right away for me, that's a very long soak, and I would ask you, did you mean to do that? And if you didn't, you're probably going to see why that's going to affect the rest of the roast. So when you have a longer soak time like this, you are not, you're taking away more energy from the roast. Energy meaning the fuel. You're taking away the fuel, the energy, the heat. So right away, I think that could be an issue, which I believe if we get in a little bit later into the last part here with dry end at 6 minutes 16, that's late to me. I would call that a late end or a late time marking. And it doesn't always have to be late. You know, sometimes, I don't know, that can work with some roasts. But in particular, in this one, what I see, and from everything that I see, I would call this late, okay? Even if you are going for a medium roast. I would try to get this down to like maybe 4 minutes 30 or 5 minutes. And how we can do that, I think, is just by, at a minute, shortening your, or turning back the fuel, turning the fuel back on right here at a minute and having a minute soak, not a almost 2 minute soak. Because you take away so much energy, right? You lose momentum, basically. And you can see that here in the ROR. This is the squiggly line here. This is our ROR. So theory says we're supposed to see a downward trending, sloping ROR. This is sort of going, it's more parallel than sloping down, which again, in theory, is saying that this coffee may be baked, right? Baked meaning roasted evenly, but so even that there's no excitement. It's plain, it's baked, it's flat, it's a one note sort of coffee. And roasting, all that means is just turning it brown. You know, when we roast things in specialty coffee, we want certain flavors to be accentuated. We're looking to do a special thing with specialty coffee, right? So as a roaster, if we can manipulate all of these things to do those special things in special coffee for it to taste a certain way, that's what makes what we do really special. And also really hard sometimes too, okay? But it's okay, right? I'm saying all of this not to pick on you and not to make you feel bad or anything like that. This is all a learning process, and I think it's really good that you're going for it this way and you're even asking for help, okay? We're turning the heat back on, and we're not turning it back up to full power, but only to about, maybe it looks like, if this is your full power, maybe it's about 70%. That kind of sounds right, okay? And we let this kind of go on till about 4 minutes 30, and we're lowering the heat. Now, and we're increasing the air as we go. This blue line is our air. This red line is our fuel. And they should do that. You know, as this goes down, air should kind of go up. So that's correct. So we're here at maybe like, is this like a 10? You know, a really low setting and then kind of lower and then a little bit higher. But the dry end seems just a little bit late. Yeah. And I think the issue is right here in the soak. Okay. So if we can get this down to about 5 minutes, let's shoot for that. And I would like for you to just try to nail one thing at a time. Don't change anything. Don't change anything except the soak. So just change one thing at a time. That way you can see, okay, yes or no, that was the issue. Or yes or no, that was still the same. Let's go back to the drawing board, okay? But that's what it is. Kind of like being a roaster is kind of like being a little scientist, okay? So once we get this down to maybe like 5 minutes, that's going to set us up for a nice middle phase where we want our middle phase to be like 3 minutes 30. We're roasting in Panama, so I'm guessing you want to bring out some really good flavors there and stuff. So we really don't want to roast any of that out, I would say. That's my assumption. But you said medium roast, okay. I would go for like on the lighter side of a medium roast and go for like a 3 minute 30 to maybe 4 minute middle phase. Like if you were to hang in here, like if we were to able to hit yellow or dry end around 5 minutes or so, or even earlier than that, maybe like 4 minutes 50, something like that. That would really set you up for creating some nice flavors in the coffee. We're getting a nice little downward ROR here, which is good, right? And then we're hitting first crack at 10 minutes too. So yeah, once this thing is off, it's going to affect this whole chain. So 10 minutes to kind of late, right? So roaster theory says 8 minutes 30 if we're trying to do something in the light to medium range. If we're going dark, that's a different story. It's a little bit trickier. Everything's like a little longer and pronounced. And we're hitting that at a temp of 357. Okay. All right. Generally, we're hitting first crack at around 370, so we hit it early. Okay, interesting. We're increasing the air, and you're lowering the heat right at first crack. I would let that heat level kind of ride out for a minute in first crack, just because I want a nice rolling first crack for a nice development, right? If I cut it off right at first crack, I feel like I generally don't get the best development in the coffee. So I would wait maybe a minute or so. But again, don't change too many things at once. Try the soak thing first and then get into the development later. Once you've kind of like mastered these first two phases, then you can kind of play with your last phase, developing your coffee to what you want it to be. Okay. But yeah, generally we want first crack to be around 8 minutes 30, 8 minutes 45, something like that. We're getting into 9 minutes. Okay, cool. Hitting 10 minutes, right at 10 minutes. Maybe a little too late. Maybe a bit. Okay. Again, this is all speculation. I don't know what's in the cup. I'm not tasting what's in the cup. And I would have liked to know that, and I asked you that. What was in the cup? So I meant, did you cup it? What did it taste like? What did it taste like? Was it good? Was it flat? Did it taste like cardboard? Was it not what you were expecting? Maybe you've heard and you've looked at the tasting notes from your green buyer, right? From wherever you got your green, and they'll say certain tasting notes. And if you're like, I didn't get any of that, then maybe that's an issue. And almost 20% development at 2 minutes 28. Okay, in general, if we nailed all this other stuff, I think that kind of timing would be pretty good for a nice medium roast in terms of development, and around 12 minutes. Okay, so yeah, I think that's fine. But considering we would need to tighten up these other two phases, your ROR in the end, we're getting this little flick because we didn't get another adjustment in the fuel. So around maybe 16% development, I would go ahead and lower that fuel again. And this is stuff you can really play with in terms of how much energy you have in the end of the roast and how much you can kind of step down gradually so that you don't get this flick. Because the flick, what it tastes like to me, When I roast something like that, it definitely gets more roastier. So if you're going for a medium roast, I don't think it's that big of a deal. If you're going for a light roast, kind of a little more highbrow and more like, oh, I want nuance, you might, with this flick in your data, it might reflect in the cup to be more roastier and a loss of delicate flavors. So something to be mindful of. With this Panama, going for a medium, not really a big deal. That's what I think. I mean, there were a couple other things. I recorded this a really good first take, and then it got corrupted. The file got corrupted. So, I'm just trying to like kind of revisit what I said. It was such a good first take. Another thing too I would like to ask is, it looks like you're on a Mac. Okay, cool. That's a Mac interface. So a Mac versus PC will be a little different in terms of how they read the data on Artisan, right? And so we're really working with flawed equipment here as roasters. Nothing is really, being a home roaster, myself, I know where the technology is going, which is really exciting. But for right now, being at home, working with Artisan, it's flawed, So there's a lot of roaster intuition that you're going to have to build alongside with working with this technology, which is fine because that's how they've been doing it forever. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And you should definitely be building that, knowledge base in your roaster's gut and roaster's intuition, okay? So it's really cool to be able to just go one by one, checking things, changing one thing at a time, and trying to nail one phase at a time and start with that first phase. If you're still having trouble reaching a dry end that is a little bit quicker, say in the 5-minute range, you might want to adjust your batch size if this soak doesn't work, or the next thing that you can adjust is charging higher and getting more energy in there. Now remember, you're on a hot top and you're not working with gas, so it's not going to be as responsive as, say, a gas roaster. You can't just turn on the flame. You have to wait for your electric coils to heat up. And when I was roasting on the hot top, I would sort of like be preemptive about maybe 10 to 15 seconds. For me, in my situation, I was always like 10 seconds ahead of the curve, or I tried to be. So that's something to keep in mind too. Okay? Last thing, when you yourself are assessing your roast curves and your roast data and everything that you're going through, you also need to, I would also recommend looking at those roasted beans, having that in front of you and saying, okay, like, this is what they look like when I hit first crack at this. I would like to see what the bean face looks like. Is there any scorching or tipping? Is there any crevices? What was the development like? Are they like little plump little beans, or are they like more concave and more like wrinkly? What they look like, write it all down. Try to document everything. That way you learn faster. You can shorten your learning curve by being as meticulous as you can be, okay? And trying to just make little parallels for yourself. Okay. I think I covered everything. That's the gist of it. Start off with the first phase. But the first thing I would do is adjust that soak time, okay? And then was that a return to fuel at full power or no? I'm going to guess no. All right. Questions? Anyway, I hope that helped. This was fun. If you guys want to send me your roast curves, that'd be fun. I think for me to be able to assess them with you, it also helps me to cement or even learn more about what I'm like in my roast journey, right? So I'm always learning. Don't take this as law or like, on the level of like somebody who's like, I don't know, Scott Rayo, who thinks everything he says is like law. I'm not saying that. I'm saying in my journey, this is what I found. It may be as flawed as the technology you're using, but hopefully it's pointing you in the right direction. Like it's getting your wheels to turn, okay? Because I want to empower you because you're the one at the roaster. And that's how I always feel. I'll read something even by the most prestigious of names, and I'm like, well, I'm still not getting that on my end. So in the end, it's really just going to be me testing stuff. But thanks for pointing me in this direction. That's what it is. That's what it's about. And that's really valuable, you know, no matter who the information is coming from. I think that's really valuable. Anyway, talking too much. Thanks so much for watching. Yeah, subscribe for more content like this. Like the video if you liked it. But the reason why I can't just like answer you back, and I love to do it in video, is because I think everybody can benefit from this type of information, and we can at least start the conversation, even if I'm wrong. All right. You know, I'm sure I'm wrong on many accounts. But it won't stop us from, you know, at least we're moving forward. And I think that's the big point. Okay. Good, thanks. See you in the next one. Bye.